8.
All right, you primitive screwheads, listen up.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
I ate his liver with some fava beans and a nice Chianti.
Here's Johnny.
Vanity. Definitely my favorite sin.
I am the devil, and I am here to do the devil's work.
The power of Christ compels you.
This is my boomstick.
What's your favorite scary movie?
What's up, horror heads, and welcome to Shiver, a horror movie podcast. We are your hosts. I'm Daniel DeBona.
And I'm David Ulloa.
And we are joined this week by a brand new friend of the show and one of the stars of the Mutilator 2 coming hopefully soon to a theater near you. That seems to be the plan. That's what we're hoping for. We're joined by Carl Grasso. Carl, how are you, man?
Hi, man. I just stopped for the cake and coffee, but I don't see any cake.
Yeah. We Dave and I are both doing like a low sugar thing right now, so we've been low on the cake. We'll have to. We'll
What do you mean, no cake? All right, I'm out. Bye. Goodbye.
Yeah, sorry. I
the shit show.
I don't know where it went off to.
The hell's my agent?
Carl, you are the first guest that we've had on that is somebody who just kind of found us organically and was a fan of the show, and we're very happy that you emailed us, and we're happy to have you on, man. So we always bring people on the first time. We like to ask them, like, how did you get into horror, man? Like, we've been talking, we've been emailing. You're obviously a big fan of the genre. Where did that start for you?
I've been a horror movie fan since I was, a kid, just watching really bad TV. I'm old enough that I had a television in my room when I was a little boy and was black and white.
Yeah.
And I had cable. I had a cable box, but it didn't have a remote either. So I had to sit there with the dial.
Change the dial.
Yeah. And all the millennials like, what the fuck is he talking about right now? So
yeah,
like literally, and I'd be watching like Halloween, and then like something scary would happen. I change the channel to like Golden Girls. And then I go back and see what happened to Michael Myers, and I change back to like 227 or something. I'm like, oh God. It was my love of it. And then I watched one movie, Night of the Creeps, on like USA.
What a great movie!
Oh my God,
I love
good.
that movie. Fred Decker, what a fucking director.
It was cut to hell, obviously, because it was television. Yeah. And I'm like, this isn't that scary. It's kind of funny. And then when I got older, I got into the VHS phase. Your audience has no idea what a VHS is at this point. And I got oh wow, you mean when the guy had a shotgun, he blew off the zombie's head? This is awesome.
Yeah.
And then I got, into college. My friend was like into deep cuts of like Italian horror movies, and you want to see something really disgusting, and then he showed me something that was really disgusting, and I remember the same since. But through that, I actually got into acting because everybody on the planet with a camera wants to make a horror movie.
Right.
Every filmmaker will want to. Spielberg did it. Everyone did it. Like everyone made like a small, short little horror movie. I did as well. And then I got into theater in college and more or less got into English, started doing more behind the scenes stuff, learning more of my craft. And then finally in 2014, 15, I had a health scare where I almost died. I had pneumonia. And I said, do I really want to go out not trying to live my dream? So I got cast in a couple short little horror movies, and then it grew into bigger movies where they were on Tubi and Vimeo and YouTube and Amazon Prime at one point. So all the way now where I have an agent and I'm auditioning for television shows and for parts in movies with Oscar winners.
That's incredible, man.
So how I got involved in the Mutilator, Buddy Cooper, the director, reached out. I put in an application, and he said, "Wait, I think I have a great part for you." I didn't know who he was, so I was kind of like, "Yeah, okay." And then I'm like, "Oh, wait a minute, it's a movie from 1984." And then I watched it, and I'm like, "This is great." And then I realized that the original Mutilator has a giant cult following.
It really does, yeah.
and you go, wait, what? But it was also known as Fall Break for a while.
Yeah.
So I knew it. I saw a little bit of it like on USA Up All Night. Like I keep saying that, but like I think I saw like a piece of it. I'm like, oh, I remember this guy under the stairs, but then as I kept like researching Buddy, and I met him in North Carolina at a Monster Con, and he helped me out a little bit. He helped me out a lot. We went on a panel and discussed the sequel, and my horror cred went up completely. And this film, The Mutilator 2, should be coming out, I believe, fingers crossed, this summer. I'm guessing this summer.
Well, summer's the perfect time for horror.
Man, that's like like you go back and you get so many of those ones with the summer camp aesthetic and stuff like that. But just the heat of the summer is what makes just a horror movie so perfect. Like this summer into fall, that's when they're best for. I agree.
And hopefully it does come out. I mean, I can't speak for something I don't know about, but you guys are gonna love this movie when it comes out.
I love the trailer. I got to tell you, I love the approach of the original Mutilator being a movie. I think that's fantastic, and it's so weird the way that like you equate certain movies with each other. Like I always put The Prowler and My Bloody Valentine like in the same headspace together.
Yep.
And the Mutilator and the Slayer for me always occupy the same headspace. They take place on these little islands and kind of secluded, very small cast. I love those two movies. And I think of them as kind of like the perfect slashers because they're not highbrow. They're exactly what you want. Give me the blood, give me the guts, give me a couple of jokes, and bring on the cheese, heavy cheese. Like I want this to be melting pot. I'm dipping, fruits and veggies and bread right into this cheesiness.
I love it.
And Mutilator 2 seems to be going that route. As fantastic.
And Mark Schulstrom did the original special effects for the first movie.
Yeah.
The guy who did Evil Dead 2's effects. Yep. And we have Joe Castro, who's done quite a lot. I mean, you can look him up. He's done multiple horror movies, and he's amazing. He's
okay. It's good to hear.
It's going to be incredible. I just can't talk about it because I don't want to be mutilated.
Fair enough. Well, man, we are happy to have you. And for everybody who listens, we were out last week. I had the flu and strep in 1 week and thought I would be recovered in time. Ended up not, just couldn't really make it for the 90 minutes. So we are starting this week with our celebration on our Black History Month. We have decided to dedicate, whereas last February we focused on the Valentine's Day aspect of things and we did movies about love and things like that. This year we are focusing on Black horror. We have found 4 movies from Black directors, and instead of our normal routine of kind of moving our way backwards, we're going to start early on this time around and move our way forward. So this week we are starting with the 1972. Some call it an exploitation film. Yeah, probably.
It's got
it. It is Blacula. Blacula, released, like I said, in 1972, it was a big deal when it came out. It was the first time that there had been a black vampire on screen. It was directed by William Crane, who did quite a few other things. But this movie was, it was kind of a movement, and it cemented itself real well by acknowledging the Dracula mythology as a lot of people know it, and then moving forward and creating their own story within that. So when we look at this updated idea of what a Dracula film is like, how does it kind of situate itself in the genre of horror and Black horror? I'll start with you, Carl.
Well, it is important that if you think about it, because it came out in 1972, it kind of predates a lot of movies, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like Texas Chainsaw, Alien, like everything in the 70s that go up into the 80s before the slasher phase. And this was right in the middle of, I think Shaft came out in 1971 or Superfly or something like that. So it was like par for the course. Like we need a black horror villain of some sort.
Right.
So they just, I mean, I can imagine in the room, they're like, what about like Blacula? And probably after the laughter died, like, I'd Black Dracula. That's great.
Yeah,
Let's do it.
I love to imagine that's the idea. Like they're sitting around, like, all right, so we want it. He's like, I want a movie. I want a vampire. I want him to be black. Let's see, vampires, Dracula, Black Dracula. Oh my God! Like it's one of those movies that just the huge light bulb comes on over his head.
Because this was the Roger Corman movie, so there was a bunch of people in a room snorting a lot of cocaine. I'm sure,
right?
Because I think Blackenstein came later. There's Dr. Hyde and Mr. Black.
That was also William Crane.
That was also William Crane.
Just watch the trailer. That's all you have to do is watch the trailer. It is like the best trailer ever made because the guy's voice, I think it's Adolf Caesar, says like the funniest rhymes on the planet. Like, don't give him no sass or he'll kick your ass. That's what I mean. That's actually the trailer. So
right.
Yeah, but Blackenstein was a year or two later. It was 73, 74, I'm pretty sure. So so this was the precursor to that. Dave?
So I had never seen Blacula, and being a big fan of Hammer horror, I was very aware of the other Dracula movie that was released in 1972, which is called Dracula AD 1972. I always liked that movie for its kind of like throwback aesthetic while trying to seem modern and current, hip and with it, as Dr. Evil would say, right? But it definitely seems old school. It seems like it's coming out of the 50s and pretending to be that. So like it's putting on a pair of like Jinko jeans and Vans, and but it's not really hitting the skate park. You know what I mean?
You mean the bell bottoms and the go-go boots?
Yeah. Oh no, I'm throwing out references I know here, right? That's my generation. Blacula, however, feels very modern. It feels like an actual re-examination of what makes horror and how do we make it modern and current, and then also how do we put the black narrative into it. And that's one of the things that for me I love about these like very ethnic specific kind of movies where you get like Asian horror, or you get Latino horror, which we don't get enough of, is how does this story that we're so familiar with play out in the eyes of this specific person? Right. And it's fantastic. I was blown away. I did not expect to like Blacula this much. I thought it was going to be cheesy. I thought it was going to be along the vein of Dracula AD 1972. And it was not. It was fantastic. It was so fucking good. The cast is absolutely incredible. The music, oh my, I mean, I expected the music to be good.
I was just
because
say, it's
every
theme song that got you.
Yeah,
the theme music got you.
Every blaxploitation movie I've ever seen, like even if it's not good, the music is just stellar.
Oh
right?
Yeah, from that period, yeah.
And this did not disappoint in that department, and it was surprisingly well written. Like I wrote down a couple of lines where I was like, "Fuck, that is just gold." That line. I got to say, this fits into the Dracula mythology like a glove. It's incredible the way that this can be woven into the and that's the other thing, is that it is respectful of the work that came before. It's a reassessment of it, looking at it through the eyes, because I love that idea of like Dracula was always this like very suave, debonair villain, you know, like you were attracted to him, but you knew he was going to eat you and kill you.
Right.
But there was that attraction, and they did away with it in this movie, where it was like, no, Dracula's a fucking racist, because why wouldn't he be? Right. He's the fucking problem. You know, he's no different than any, you know, German or Englishman or Frenchman or Spaniard that came around and said, nah, I'm going to take it because I want it. And so looking at him in that way without changing anything about him, that's what makes, I think, is such a great reassessment of the mythology. And it fits right in there because it's like, yeah, all those movies, the Bela Lugosi ones and the Christopher Lee ones, yeah, they all happened.
Yeah.
And now we've got this story. It's a fantastic way to kind of shoehorn it in there. And I loved it.
Yeah, this was my second time seeing this movie. I saw it for the first time, 08, 09, around the time when Tarantino and Eli Roth did that Grindhouse double feature.
Yeah, that
was good. I got really into just learning about exploitation films in general.
Mm-hmm.
Like I always kind of knew they were a thing, and I just always kind of just thought that they were just cheesy horror movies. And so I started kind of deep diving just this concept of different types of exploitation films and stumbled upon this one. But also keep in mind I was like 25. So again, I didn't remember. I wasn't doing deep analysis of it. I was just watching it. Right. So now, fast forward 15, 16 years, whatever. And I was watching it last night, and I'm with you, Dave. Like all I remembered was it being cheesy, and I wasn't really looking for anything from it. So this time around, kind of watching it analytically and enjoying some of the smaller things about it, I really did appreciate so many of the things that they did, namely the main one being what you were talking about, the fact that they didn't try to recreate the history of the vampire. They didn't come up with, they didn't pretend like Blacula was just something that they came up with and didn't acknowledge Dracula. Right? Dracula gave him
he's
that
a vampire,
name.
but like he just sparkles.
Right,
and
exactly.
He doesn't have any fangs.
Exactly.
But he's a vampire.
But he's a vampire. And so they worked with what was there, but then they made a movie that was unashamed of its blackness. I guess if that's a word that I can use, right? They created a movie that was a celebration of everything that was part of the culture in the early 70s. And they took all of that stuff head on. And it was really, really great to see that. And so often when people only approach these exploitation films, and in particular these blaxploitation films, from the perspective of seeing them as something cheesy, they miss out on the fact that the reason it's cheesy is because they purposefully went over the top with it to make it very in your face, because it was underrepresented culture. And so they were just going to beat you over the head with it and make you see all of these different things. And this movie does that so well, like what you said though, but also if Hammer were to release a Dracula set, they could put this in the box and nobody would think anything of it.
Yeah.
You could absolutely tell somebody, it's like, oh, yeah, I like Hammer horror. Be like, cool, watch Dracula, watch Curse of Dracula, watch Blood of Dracula, watch Blacula. And they'll be like, yes, these all fit together perfectly, yeah. Right? It all makes sense. And it was respectful of all of that while creating its own thing. And that was really, really cool. I enjoyed that. The cast was anything but one note. I mean, we didn't get just one type of male character. We didn't get just one type of female character. These were
real people.
These were real people. Absolutely. I mean, we've got our Dr. Thomas, and he's very respected in his field and very, very good at his job. And then we got Skillet, man. And Skillet's just, they're all over the place, but it's
one strange dude.
Oh my God. Just his fascination with the
one strange dude.
But and so in one movie, again, when you go back to the 70s and you watch movies in general, when you look at the role of a black character, they usually fall into, one of a handful of stereotypes. And hell, you could say the 70s, but I mean, when we look at when we look at the movies that black actors are winning Academy Awards for now, what are they winning them for? Doing a better job of falling into those stereotypes. You know, all anybody could talk about was Green Book, 12 Years a Slave, and all these things. And it's like, okay, so
The Help.
we're just
The Help.
Help. There we go. We're just making modern movies of the same stereotypes. So so it's great to go back. I mean, that's 50 years?
Yeah, it's a 51-year-old movie.
Yeah. And see that it's like, no, the representation's been there if you were willing to find it. And that I loved. I was really blown away at this point in my life. Oh, Tim Hatch thought he was going to chime in, but didn't have anything to say there.
It's I'm not sure if maybe this is an existential comment. It seems deep.
That or it's an emoji that StreamYard doesn't recognize. But
it could be.
Yeah. So there was just there were so many things that we're about to get into that made this so good for a movie that, like you were talking about with old slashers, this movie is pure cheese. It's 100% cheese. But it's a fine baked brie, man. It's a good cheese. And so I was here for it. This ended up being far just light years better than anything I expected out of it.
I am a brie man. If I had to, I know I do. Thank you. If I had to choose one cheese to have for the rest of my life, it would probably be brie.
See, I'm a hard cheese guy. Give me a good manchego.
Oh, I like a manchego.
Something that goes good with it's like grapes, beer, cheese. That's my scene.
Well, it's kind of like a feta cheese, more like that's a pub cheese or something.
There we go.
Like
it's a pub cheese.
Yeah. All right. Look at us. Yeah. Welcome to Shiver, a dairy podcast,
a cheese podcast.
So as we talk about, different things that we're going to get into throughout the show, let's get into the first thing. Let's talk about the story in a section that we're calling From Transylvania to New York. So this is it's incredible. And we've kind of mentioned it a little bit, but it is at once no different than any other Dracula movie or any other vampire movie that came before it, and yet it is drastically different. It is the same, and it is not. It's almost like Schrodinger's cat. It both is and isn't dead until you decide what it is. You know. Right. So how does this story of loved, lost, of horror, right? How does it work as a work of horror, as a social commentary? How does it work for you? And we're going to throw it to you, Carl, first.
Well, that beginning scene before the awesome animatic credit scene with that really funky music that I can't get out of my head. That's gonna be my ringtone from now on, the Blacula theme. It's actually a great comment when his name isn't Blacula, he's given the name Blacula, and then they never say Blacula ever again.
Yeah, it's just Mama Waldy.
Mama Waldy. Yeah. And it's basically Dracula's like a white slave trader, and they're having an argument where Mama Waldy wants to stop slavery. And like you were saying before, the guy's a colossal Dracula's a colossal racist.
Yeah. Go figure that this guy who has no regard for human life has no regard for human life.
Has even less regard for other human lives.
Yeah. It's weird. I always thought of Dracula as the bad guy, but I never thought of him as a monster. So I saw this. I don't know if that's weird.
You can suck all the blood and kill all the people, but don't be racist, dude.
But
don't
don't be a dick about it.
Well, William Marshall had a big hand in writing the character because they wanted something completely different, and he's like, no. And I mean, as an actor, I could probably guess William Marshall didn't want to be playing a vampire because the guy was a stage actor, and he was in other movies where he played Othello. The guy was the real deal. Just listen to the guy's voice, and you're like,
listen to that voice.
Let me try to get it. Sir, I suddenly find your cognac as distasteful as your manner. I'm going to talk like this from now on. You find, humanity and brutality.
Hey, Carl, if this podcast thing doesn't work out, I see a future in acting, maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I'll be the next. I can't be the next Blacula. That's racist. I can't do that. But like,
Let's
I sit
not.
there and but like as an actor, I look at it and I'm mesmerized by him.
Mhm.
Like the guy,
Yeah.
just by his voice, but like he's doing more than he should for a movie called Blacula. Like he rises, he makes this a character. And it does take me out of the movie when Dracula turns around and says, "I will call you Blacula," but no one calls him because you got to openly laugh at that and go, "What?"
Right.
And and then then we're in New York with two very over the top gay people, or two actors who don't know how to play gay.
So yeah, like just I don't know if they were really bad at it or really good at it. Like it was
Well, when you talk like that, obviously you must be of and I got just big afro for no reason, and a cigarette holder, and I'm just gonna talk like that.
holder, yeah.
But
And you're like, what?
One
What are we
step
looking
at a
at?
time. One step at a time. We're working on on black representation in this movie. We'll work on on the gay representation in another. We'll get there where we can unite, black and gay.
I didn't make this movie. I saw this is what I saw. And it was shocking to me. Not really, but I mean it was 1970. Again, guys, it's 50 years ago.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, let's no political the political correctness police, because it's 50 years ago. You don't have a time machine, you can't slap them around. Okay. It's very impressive that William Marshall was the star of a film, in that era. Yes, granted, it was a horror movie where he was Blacula, but I mean, the movie, like we were saying, it stands on its own as its own retelling as a vampire story. It just does.
Yeah. So so Dave and I used to do Geek More together, and one time we did film vampires, and so I
was
can
there
only
cheese? Did you have cheese during the Geek More?
there was no cheese. I used to drink more, and so because that one wasn't as serious. What's funny as we get into approaching the story on this, I in my head, and Dave, just tell me if you think this is how it's going to play out. My constant comparisons for this are going to be to like more modern Dracula movies, whereas I could see you drawing a lot of like Lee comparisons and stuff like that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so here we go. Yeah. So we're gonna give it to you with both barrels here. So my absolute favorite part of this, so I unabashedly love Bram Stoker's Dracula. I think that movie is just phenomenal. And I think that one of the reasons that movie is so good is the Oceans of Time storyline that just makes that movie move. And I think that what's incredible is that same story happened here. And I know that that's, like I said, that it's not that, they didn't create that with the Bram Stoker's Dracula film. It comes from the original book. But I love that while telling this story of another vampire, they beautifully recreated that Oceans of Time storyline. That idea that Dracula lives forever, or in this case, Blacula, and that the love that he lost upon receiving this curse, he's now getting another chance at it. And that part of this story is what sets this apart from so many bad vampire movies. Like Dave said, you always picture Dracula as a bad guy, but whether or not you picture him as a monster kind of depends on what part of that story you're looking at. And what we got here out of this story was there wasn't just a vampire terrorizing New York. There was a man who was cursed and lost the love of his life and was now getting another shot at it. And that idea for at least a personal redemption, because you can only assume that there's a great amount of failure to be felt there from Mama Walde's point of view, because he, being himself and being outspoken, set into motion the series of events that led to the love of his life dying. Now he comes back and he gets another shot at that. And yes, he's a vampire and he has to protect himself, and he has to feed to live. But ultimately, what we've got here is a man who's in love and just desperately wants another shot at that. And that part of this story is fantastic. That I loved that so much. As soon as Tina showed up, I was like, okay, I know exactly where you're going with this because that's Vanetta McGee again. So this great, yes, run with this. Please don't let this be a one-off thing. And they did, and that became a driving point of the story. And the main thing that draws your attention, you've got this story of Dr. Thomas trying to figure out why there are suddenly vampires in New York, and that part's cool and that's fun, and that's where the action comes in. But the love across oceans of time storyline, as this movie's what, 94 minutes, the one with Gary Oldman is much longer, but still that's the storyline that's the through line for everything else that's happening. That's the reason you keep watching the movie and you get so sucked in. And that's what it was here the whole time. I'm just are they going to get together? Are they going to get to run away and live some sort of, just crazy in love vampire life? And so that part of the story is what made this movie really powerful and made it an equally important stone in the Dracula mythos, because it told that story that we all know and that we're all familiar with when it comes to the Dracula mythos. And I thought that was a genius move in telling this story. I think that it created a multifaceted vampire who you one moment we're hoping that Dr. Thomas would kill, and the next moment hoping he would get away. And I was just amazed at how beautifully that story was told. And so when it comes to kind of how all of this fits in with all of it, that right there cements it as equally important as so many things, because that part of the story is what makes a vampire a relatable character. And when you can do it in a way where it's not just completely stupid as other vampires who we have kind of mentioned here tend to do with their movies, when you can tell a love story and create a character that you empathize with in a vampire, that's super impressive.
That's great. I'm gonna have to up my my ante here now.
Oh, he's pulling out the cheese whiz.
That I've crossed oceans of time for you is definitely my favorite part of the Dracula novel, and something that they don't really get at in most of the movies. They do get at in Bram Stoker's Dracula. I think that there's a lot of that here, and there's a line that Mama Walde says that it immediately hit me, and I was like, what a beautifully written line that harkens back to that line from the novel and does it and reinterprets it for the black man in 1972. And he says to Tina, he says, "I have lived again to lose you twice." And and to me, that one line of dialogue encapsulates what I think this movie's about. And I say that because as a literature teacher, I love analysis, but I'm coming at this from my lived experience. I'm not black. Obviously, if you're watching live, you can tell.
Shocker if you only listen to us.
I'm not black, right? I'm a white Latino kid. I say kid. I'm 35 now. I'm not really a kid anymore. From Miami. So that is my life experience. But I can try to take what I have learned from all of literature and from Black literature and try to analyze this. And what I'm seeing is that this is a movie about the injustices that are done to specifically Black men, and how in their desire to have not anything other than what they are owed, than what is just. The world says, no, man, you can't
Right.
have that. And you can't have it in that time, and you can't have it in this time. And we will do everything in our power to take that away from you. And one of the things that I have found to be a common theme in Black stories is that you need to take care of yourself, and you need to make sure that you are okay. And this is something that I have found to be true in Black stories, as in almost any other ethnicity. Their stories, as much as they're about the community and they're about the group, it's also about, how do I make it? How do I ensure my survival? Because I know that my community will live on, but how do I live on? And that's a story that is really personal to anyone who is seen as another. And we see that here, where Dr. Thomas is hunting him down. It's
Right.
not it's not a white man really that's hunting him. You know, there is Lieutenant Peters, but the guy who's hunting him, for all intents and purposes, the Van Helsing of this movie is Dr. Gordon Thomas.
Yeah.
And the idea here is that he needs to make it too. He needs to survive in this world. We're all out for survival, and we will do everything in our power to survive. And you are expendable for it. And it's not a nice message, I don't think, but I think it's a very real message. And it's one that makes you say, like, if I can't even secure my survival and the survival of the person I hold most dear, which is ultimately the biggest jab that he's given, that not once, but twice he loses his love through no fault of his own.
Right.
Like, what does that say? You know, and it's a very bleak theme here, but it's one that needs to be discussed, and it's one that needs to be talked about. Like, how difficult is it to be Black in America? I don't know, but movies like this help me to understand, and they make it so that I'm never going to experience that, but I can try to understand what that's like, so that I can become an ally, so that I can become someone who's going to say, hey, no, man, cut that the fuck out. This guy just wants to live his life, you know? And that, to me, is the beauty of this movie. And I don't know if it's the first Black horror movie. It's the first one that comes to mind, but it's certainly, I think, one of the best examples of how you take something that is a very, very Black story, something that, unless you're Black, you're not really going to identify with. Like, you might identify with certain aspects of this, but you're going to say, fuck, that's powerful. That's incredible. And I gotta try to do something about this.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes any sense.
Oh no, it makes plenty of sense. And just the idea, you know, we had a very similar conversation back when we did Candyman, and it's the idea of taking all of that and taking something that if that's what the label said, right, then it would scare people off. So what do? You package it in this movie called Blacula, and people go, hey, that's clever, you know, and then they're gonna watch it.
The Twilight Zone thing, like where
aliens
can talk about communism, but they can't say the word communism, or
yes,
racism.
And so they did a very similar thing with Candyman, where they packaged this movie that is just jam packed with social commentary and telling these stories, and like, oh, but that's just a scary movie. Take a date, right? And so it's a genius move to tell this story the way they did.
Absolutely. Go ahead.
Oh no, that's just listening. So what we have here is a story that is rife with social commentary and with these ideas of love and love lost and all of these things. But the people who bring it to us, there's a lot of folks in the cast to this movie. And so I want to talk about now is just, these are our New York natives is what we're calling this section. And what we get is a cross section of a lot of the different types of people who you may have met in New York in 1972. So lots of people to talk about here. But I'm going to start with you, Dave. I mean, who stands out? Who's the most ambitious for you?
So, I mean, William Marshall is the title character. But for me, there's one person who stood out for me in a way that I was like, damn, man. And I've seen him in other stuff before, and every time I see him, he's got this gravitas to him. And it's Thalmus Rasalala. Fuck, man. Every time he's on screen, it's like everything else. It's shot in vignette when he's on screen, because everything kind of dims around him, and he just soaks up all the light. And it's absolutely incredible, because there's like, I believe every word that comes out of his mouth. He could have been saying the sky was purple. He could have been saying that that there's a vampire running around the middle of fucking Brooklyn, and I would have believed it. And I did believe it. He's got such style, and that's the other thing. Like, fuck, this guy can dress. Like he's doing the whole turtleneck with the tweed blazer. Fuck, man, the swagger that this guy's got. Like, I want to be him when I grow up. Like,
strong mustache game. Strong mustache game.
I will never have that mustache. Never.
a lot of corduroy too. You gotta wear a lot of corduroy to be him.
Yeah, and I love me some corduroy, man. In fact, I'm gonna wear some tomorrow.
You better air yourself out. You might chafe down there. You gotta
oh no, it's already chafed. It's all just raw down there now. So I can't do any more damage. So yeah, man, he is so amazing as Dr. Thomas. It's such like a great modernization of Abraham Van Helsing. He makes it current, makes it modern. And he's also like really caring and loving, because Michelle, played by Denise Nichols, man, I mean, he's really, really kind of, it's almost paternal with her. I mean, it's obvious romantic what's going on there. There's definitely an attraction. But it's like the scenes where he's trying to like have her not freak out. Like, he was calming me, and I'm like, nah, I'm just a casual observer out here on the outside, man. I'm not even inside the TV, ain't nothing gonna get me out here. But man, he was calming me down. There's such a calm, cool, collected attitude that he had, and I thought it was fantastic.
All right, Carl, who stands out for you, man?
Well, I'm gonna do the obvious one for comic relief. I mean, obviously, William Marshall. I mean, not for comic relief, but William Marshall, I said before. But Skillet, just I love the Skillet.
An Alabama boy. He's from Helena, Alabama.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
That guy should be in every freaking movie. He should be in, he should be in Star Wars and be like, man, that Darth Vader's a strange dude.
Yeah. Did you see the cape on him?
I was about to say, he's got a thing for capes, right? So
he's in The Shining. Man, why is that kid talking to his finger? I could see Skillet like everywhere. And but Skillet points out like facts, like, guys, this guy's weird. Like, what is he doing with a cape? Like, and this brings me back. Granted, this is dated, but I mean, I remember a time where you could actually leave the phone number with the babysitter and they could page you at the restaurant, and that happens in that movie.
Yeah,
where they find Dr. Thomas and like, Dr. Thomas, your office wants you, and that's before cell phones and pagers. You'd have to be like, well, I'm at so and so bar or so and so restaurant, and they'd actually would call and you would have to pick up. And that cracked me up. I'm like, nobody will understand that, because they're like, that's a plot hole. Why would they know he's at this bar? Because he probably told them.
Now you know what I want to see. I want to see the movie where like it takes place in the 60s or something, and the guy walks up to like
Skillet?
Skillet walks up to the receptionist, and he's like, hey, so I'm gonna be down at the corner bar, right? If you need me, you give me a call, right? And then he leaves, and like she looks over and she's like, we're
Which
not
bar?
gonna fucking call him, like he's not important. You know,
Like-
every time that happens, it's like, man, that's an important fucking guy. They knew where to get him.
Yeah, that is so. If you're gonna date the movie, like that's one part of it, you know, that and the giant film camera that the lady takes pictures
That thing,
of,
yes.
yeah, which made me kind of laugh, and I go, well, how does Blacula know what a camera is to go after her? in her
Yeah, to
apartment?
realize that he's not going to show up in the picture.
Yeah,
Well, it's kind of
a plot
like how
hole,
Michael
but-
Myers knows how to drive. You know, when he steals the car in
Well-
1978. You know, how does he? I don't know. Do I care? Not really.
No, I mean it was there for the jump scare, obviously. For he
Yeah.
has to-
Yeah.
It's a horror movie. He has to eat some people, so you know.
Right.
But again, antiquated. Like, well, why is she in a room with red? It's called a dark room, honey. It's,
Right.
You know, before you took pictures on your phone, you actually had to print them out on medium format paper.
You had
Paper.
You had something like this.
She didn't even have
Yeah.
that.
Didn't have a
What's that-
screen
what's
in
that,
the
your
back,
Pentax?
right? This is a Fuji. It's a Fujica 35. You had to look through this thing here. It was called a viewfinder. All right, for all you little kiddies at home. And then you press this little button, and it took
Oh,
a
God.
picture. And then you had to advance the film with this little lever here.
Dave, what's film? What film? Film on my teeth? What are you talking about?
Yeah, welcome to Shiver, a 35 millimeter podcast.
Guys who are old and like to eat cheese podcast.
Yes,
This is the oldest we've ever been on the show.
it is.
It's
It absolutely is.
1972, and she's taking
Yeah.
pictures with medium format film. I mean, it doesn't get older than that. It really doesn't. It's borderline the 60s. You know?
Yeah.
But
So,
I love the whole cast.
go-
I agree
okay.
with you guys. The cast
Yeah, I
is,
mean-
completely solid.
my favorite thing about the cast, stand out for me, like I said, as Skillet was just spectacular. He served as comedic relief, but also, like Carl said, I mean, he served as like the voice of, like, how is he the only guy who realized that he was weird, right? Like,
Something wrong with this guy, man.
Yes, he was the only one who saw that, and so that was spectacular. But
Guys, there's like 200 years worth of moth bites in this guy's cave. Have you not seen that?
I like when he starts screwing with him, and he's like, "Man, I buy that cape off of you." Like you're telling basically Count Dracula, "I'm gonna buy that cape off of you."
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like I said at the top, my favorite thing about the cast for this movie was that we did get a little bit of everything. Yes, the gay couple that we got was ridiculously over the top, right? We've got the lisp and the cigarette holder. Oh my gosh, obviously they must be gay, you know, and you know, they're very,
Well, how else would you know?
you know that chintzy couch that we have or that chintzy bed that we have in the guest room? What
Yeah.
if we use this instead?
Child, what are you talking about?
It's like they're sitting around writing. It's like, what's the gayest word you know? Chintzy? Yeah.
Yeah. And he's got a cigarette
Let's go
holder.
with that.
Yeah, that's gay.
And so we, you know, we kind of we go from them. We've got Skillet, who's your stereotypical 70s guy in the club, but then everybody else shows so much breadth of character. Like I didn't realize when you were talking about William Marshall's, pedigree. I didn't know that. And so I'm just sitting around like, wow, this guy's bringing just an incredible bit to this. And then you've got the, oh my God, names are just completely escaping me right now. The Denise Nicholas character, Michelle. She like works in like the crime lab, right? So these are people who are respected in their fields, and you're seeing them do all of these things, and they're in positions to make all of that, to make all of this happen. There was never a white savior moment in this movie. As a matter of fact, they were all, those were the people who didn't believe them. He tells them he tells the coroner, lock the door. Just trust me. No matter what you do, don't forget to lock the door. Does he lock it? No, he doesn't lock it. Why does he feel like he needs to listen to this guy?
To make a great scene.
Yeah.
Also, that guy Sam, played by
Elijah
Cook Jr. Man, he's such a great character actor. I've seen him in so many old movies. But one of the best, I think, is The Killers. And,
Maltese Falcon.
Yeah, Maltese Falcon too. And fuck, man, he always kills it in whatever role he's in, no matter how big, how small. That's a guy who's like, hey, there's Elijah Cook Jr. again.
Yeah. But absolute standout for me, head and shoulders above the rest. And part of this is just purely cosmetic, but there's nothing I can do about this. Y'all, Vanetta McGee.
Yeah. What a smoke show, man.
God, what a bombshell.
Yeah.
Just wow.
Yeah.
She was so incredibly gorgeous. And I mean, just there was a scene or two where I was like, I don't know what anybody just said. I've just been staring. Like I need to, I've got to. Let me rewind just a minute. Okay, cool. There's some plot, sure.
And the thing is, she's talented, man. Because she's distractingly beautiful, and her acting would pull me back into the scene.
Exactly.
It was weird, you know.
Yeah, no, that's the thing. While she is that gorgeous, she didn't lean on it as an excuse to just half-ass deliver lines and not be there. She was present in more than just her aesthetic beauty. Her voice, the way that she interacted with Mama Walde, just all of that was so good. And that moment where they're lying in bed and he wakes up and he says, I have to go now or else it will mean death. And she's sitting there and you can see it on her face. And she says, I want to go with you, but I'm scared. She's all in at this point of being the reincarnation of Luva from 200 years prior when he was around the first time. And you see it in her face that she's completely committed to everything he has to say. And the way she delivers that line, I knew that the only thing stopping her was this idea of having to be bitten and turned undead. But then what does he do? Man comes right back in with that voice, and what he says, it won't.
You have to do the voice. You have to do the voice.
I'm so bad at voices. It won't be painful of that, I can assure you. And it's just like, oh shit, I'd let this. That's
not bad. Not bad. You got.
I closed my eyes. I thought that was William Marshall.
And then you just kind of you see it like wash over her, and when she freaks out, when they all find out and she won't let her go, and they won't let her go, because she knows that they're all after him, and she just has a complete come apart because she loves this man. 48 hours and she's all in. Just everything she did to deliver on that role was at her performance was as beautiful as she is as a person. And like you said, Dave, it was easy to be distracted by how pretty she was. But then she was so good at what she was doing that that's what pulled me back in. There are plenty of actors throughout history. I'm not going to sit here and shit on anybody, but there are plenty of people who have had multi-film careers just based on being distractingly pretty enough that you don't notice how terrible they are at acting and delivering lines. She was not that. And that was amazing to me. I was entranced by her. It was absolutely amazing to watch her perform, to see her in this role. I thought she was great.
She managed to do something that is still making me guess about her character's motivations. She played Tina Luva so subtly that I still don't know whether she was charmed by Mama Walde,
right,
or whether she really was the reincarnation of Luva, who recognized him in some sort of like primal way, where it's like, yeah, we are connected. That sort of subtlety in your acting to make me keep thinking about it, because I'm sort of a cinematic guy. Like I love looking at directors. I love looking at cinematographers. I like performances, but they don't speak to me. Even like the greatest of great performances, they don't speak to me the way that that a camera does. They don't speak to me the same way that that a typewriter does. With the writer. No offense, Carl. But
I like typewriters.
No, good. I'm glad. Let me just click clack here away. Invite Carl back. But man, that's when someone can do something on screen that sticks with me and makes me keep thinking, like, what was going on in that character's head, where I start giving a character, which you're traditionally not supposed to do. Literary analysis says you don't give characters human motivation because they're not humans, they're characters, they're constructs, right? But I'm thinking of her as a person. Like, was she charmed? Was she Luva? And that, to me, that's one of the, like, if you can do that, you have won.
Yeah,
Acting's not a competition to win, except the Oscars and
except for all those awards that you can win for being a better actor than everyone else.
But
or the opposite,
she wins.
Yes, or the ones you can win for being terrible.
Right, the Razzies.
The Razzies.
Everyone likes a
Tom Hanks nominated for a Razzie this year, by the way.
Really?
Yeah, for he did some sort of Pinocchio remake or something. It was apparently awful.
Yes. Yeah, I think it was Zemeckis. No, Zemeckis did that one.
Possibly. I don't know.
I don't believe these things should compete either way. It's how do you say that? This person's performance is not as good as somebody that as equal, and we can name 4,000 examples. That's why George C. Scott, I think, stayed home one year or something when he won. I think for Patton or something. Yeah. And he's like, I don't think we should compete. And I agree. I mean, because there's always these fights. Well, how come so and so didn't get it? Oh, maybe, I consider that person as good as the person who won.
Right.
So it's only eye to the beholder kind of thing. Like, for example, when I win for the Mutilator, I'm gonna be like Dustin Hoffman and say that none of them lost. None of my fellow nominees lost. So, yeah.
Perfect.
I said it on this show, guys. I don't want to hear it, but I didn't say it. Okay.
He called it. He called the shot.
I called it right now.
It was the great Bambino pointing out into left field.
Okay.
So
back to vampires.
Right. There's one character that we all mentioned and did not spend a significant amount of time talking about, and I'm grateful for that, because our penultimate section here is one that we're calling Mamuwalde, Prince of Darkness.
It's like we knew he was going to get his own section.
Almost. And so following in the same vein as Universal Studios with the tragic monster, right? Marshall's performance as Mamuwalde is, I think,
needed an Oscar.
This is the stuff of legend here. I mean, this is Boris Karloff as Frankenstein. This is Bela Lugosi as Dracula, but updated. And so I've thrown it to you, Carl. I'm going to throw it to you, Daniel, first. What do you think of William Marshall as Mamuwalde?
Man.
As villain, as character, but also as villain, as monster.
Right. As a character, I mean, he's just stellar, right? But when you look at the villainous aspect of it, when you look at this idea of that reference that you made, villain versus monster, he so beautifully portrayed that dichotomy of the tragic monster. Also, just funny you mentioned Boris Karloff, because I was looking at him while you were doing your thing there, and he understudied Boris Karloff as Captain Hook on Broadway one time.
Really?
Yeah, it's like the first thing in his wiki. I don't know much about the guy. I just happened to catch that line, and you're like, it's like you said Boris Karloff, like as I was reading, I was like, that's crazy. So this is a guy who has every right in the world to be pissed off. This is a man who was doing nothing except for looking out for his people and trying to end the slave trade, trying to further his community, and was punished for it in one of the most wicked and terrible ways. And so when he does come back, is he a monster? Yes, he has to eat. He has to eat people to live, and and he is it's kill or be killed for him. And so he does kill quite a few people, like a lot of people. And so you can't very well be like, oh, well, but he's kind of a hero. No, I mean, the dude's a villain, right? But he's a relatable villain. It's easy to be empathetic to his plight. And that is only accented by the fact that William Marshall's voice just so perfectly sells all of this. My favorite is after Dr. Thomas is onto him. But they're still playing. They've got a couple of chess moves left, and they're sitting there at the club, and they start talking. And he says, "Do you know much about the occult?" And he says, "Oh, you mean what the world has deemed the black arts, you know?" And like, and he says, "Well, do you believe that vampires are real? Is the devil real? You know?" And he's just, and it's all like, he's like, "No, you're not going to outsmart me. I see what you're doing, and I get it, and I can play this game too." That the tension in that moment was so good, sold perfectly by both of those guys. But I mean, again, if it is a competition, I mean, Thalmus got waxed. He just, I mean, it was, and just the presence that William Marshall brought to that role, and then, man, the end. Right when it's over for him, he's got nothing left. I've lived to lose you twice. So what else is there? And he just commits to putting himself into the sunlight. And you went that sequence where he's going up the steps, man. It was haunting, and it was gorgeous. He did amazing things. Like, honestly, if we were to go back and rework that episode of Geekmore about cinematic vampires, like, Blacula is a contender now, because this was an amazing role.
Carl?
Yeah. Well, the movie should have been probably titled Prince Mamuwalde, but nobody would know what that is, so that's why they call it Blacula.
Right, that doesn't sell.
That doesn't sell, exactly.
Like, what the hell is that? Yeah, it's, again, William Marshall just all the way. Like, he wrote it. He wanted to convey this message of, I don't want to say an anti-hero, because that's kind of cliche, but I never did double negatives. I always root for him. And I know he's a monster, and I know he's killing people, but he was made that kind of what Daniel was saying by Dracula, and he has to eat blood, and he has to, procreate and make more vampires, which leads into like one of his greatest set pieces in the warehouse, where he has his brethren of vampires descend on Dr. Thomas and the other police.
Oh yeah, when they throw the lanterns that seem to combust when they break open, and nobody understands why.
I might be crazy, but Dave, help me out with this one.
Sure.
Remember, you guys know Aliens, I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
The sub basement where the Marines are going in, and they can't, use their weapons because of the thermonuclear or whatever.
Right.
And all of a sudden, all the aliens come out of the walls.
Yeah.
I was getting a little bit of like, not saying that James Cameron ripped off Blacula, not at all. But it's almost where, one cop's dying and they're screaming the cop's name, and, it's like, where's so-and-so? And all of a sudden, they're coming at him and now throwing fire bombs. Like in Aliens, Drake had the flamethrower. I'm like, I wonder if this was some. But as a writer, subconsciously, that might have been in someone's mind when they were.
Yeah, I know. Cameron always mentions Vietnam as like the big inspiration behind that movie and the approach that he took to writing the Marines, the Space Marines.
Right.
But like you said, I mean, you watch things, you love things. and they influence your work
Of course,
in countless ways that you don't even think about. So it's funny, as soon as you mentioned it, I was like, oh no, I know exactly what scene you're talking about.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, they dispense with the nest, and they, you know, they close a giant metal door like the APC and Aliens. Like, let's get out of here.
Yeah.
And of course, you know, William Marshall's with it. Good evening, gentlemen. And both of
Also,
them, like,
what an
shit their
action-packed
pants.
scene. What a great fucking scene.
And
Dude.
1972, no CGI. You know, those are all guys on fire.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
We need more burning dudes on screen these days.
You're damn right we do.
Dude, not enough people taking falls where we see the whole damn fall.
Yeah.
Like
James
when
Bond
the,
movies.
Yeah, where the
Right.
vampire came off of a 30-foot stack and we watched them crash down. Damn it, if mankind could do it, then
The
more
movies in the
professional.
Yeah, but have you seen Mick Foley these days?
Ooh, a rough scene, man.
Like like in the early James Bonds in the 70s, guys are falling out of planes.
Yeah.
You know, guys are falling off of cliffs.
They did that shit for real.
Smokey and the
Yes.
Bandit with the cars launching and stuff. There ain't no CGI. Like, you had to do that. You had to be lit on fire.
That's one of the
Again-
great things about these older movies, and to their credit, the James Bond movies are ones where they still do this. You know, where it's still just a guy doing the thing, but like there's no question about how they did it.
Right.
You know, it's like, no, some crazy motherfucker got in a car and drove off a cliff. You know, it's like, oh, how did they do that scene where Roger Moore skis off the cliff and then he parachutes? You know, and then it's the Union Jack. Like, no, man, some crazy fucking guy did that.
Yeah, because
Like, they had
somebody
a
was
guy-
like, ski off
they
the
wrote a
cliff
check.
parachute? Mhm. Oh, yeah, no problem.
Yeah,
that's
gotcha.
Tuesday?
How many
Yeah.
times I gotta do that? 2 times? 3 times? How many?
You sure you don't need the third take?
Yeah, I love watching shit like that because, you know, like, that's a dude falling off a cliff.
Yeah.
You know? Hopefully he made it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And yeah, that scene was like, I mean, vampires coming out of everywhere, getting like lit on camera, which is always dangerous. Even 2023, that's still dangerous to do. You know, it was wild. I mean, probably that was the biggest set piece that they had, because the rest of it was kind of like, Blacula walks up to somebody and throws the guy gets a wall. And they, there's the budget, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But William Marshall really cemented the fact home with this guy, as he turns into a monster. He doesn't start a monster, but he forced with the nature of what happened to him, he becomes a monster to survive. And that is a metaphor. I mean, I don't want to go the black metaphor, but I mean, it is a black metaphor.
Yeah.
100%.
Well, I mean, it has to be acknowledged because it is a black story,
And
about the
police
black experience.
officers, and the police officers are all white as well.
Yeah.
So I'm
Man,
sure there was
They dropped some hard F-bombs. You want to talk about placing this movie in time?
Oh yes. Yes. Warning to everybody: it's a 50-year-old movie, so
Yeah,
you're gonna
50-year-old
hear
movie,
stuff.
and they don't pull any punches when it comes to talking about the gay couple.
No,
and
not at
how they
all.
refer to him. Yeah, there's a time capsule for you as to when this movie was made.
Yeah.
Right. But that doesn't make it bad. I mean,
Oh, no,
it's bad.
You've got to look at things through the lens of when they were made. It's for as much as people bitch about cancel culture and all that, not to go on that rant, but you can't. It's not fair to look at something that was acceptable at the time and to now look back and be like, oh, this is awful because of that. No, that's how people talked in the 70s. That's why when you make a period piece, now you can still say certain things because it fits the time.
Yeah.
Right.
I think my favorite thing about William Marshall's performance is that, and I definitely wouldn't rank Charles Macaulay in the pantheon of great Dracula actors, but he was pretty good.
Yeah.
William Marshall matches him. It's like a tit for tat at that very beginning of the movie. This is a very evenly matched diplomatic repartee that's going on here. There's never a moment in which I thought Mama Walde is the guy who's like in the back. Like he's right up there with him. Like there's such a strength to him, and there's such a and part of it is his voice. You know, I mean, we've been trying to do his voice all night. You can't do his voice.
I want some cheese.
It's just impossible because there's such like a stoicism to it. There's such an intelligence, you know. It's like, man, you know, it's 1800s, and like I feel like you could like outperform me in any trivia, you know. Like you are just you're the smartest guy in the room, you're the most cavalier guy in the room, you're I mean the most charming guy in the room, you know. He is only put at a disadvantage because he's literally overpowered, and he's turned into the very thing that that Dracula is, you know, which could be commentary on colonization, on colonialism, maybe, you know, on the whiteifying of the black man in the U.S., you know, post slavery. Maybe I don't know, but I think I see it there, and I think that when he is released from the coffin and he comes out with all the anger of like 200 years, 300 years of pent up rage, the fact that he's able to control that and feed only for need and not for want, right? Like unless you are in his way, he's not Dracula. And that's one of the things that I love about him. Like Dracula eats because he wants to, you know, like that really famous line in the original Dracula where he says, "I never drink wine." You know, like there's this sense that like I love to indulge myself in blood. I savor it. That's not the sense that I get from Mama Walde. Mama Walde does what he must do to survive, but really, his drive, his motivation, is to be with Luva, because that's what was taken away from him. You can turn him into a vampire. Yeah, you can lock him up for all these years, but it was that separation from the love of his life, listening to her go crazy, go hungry, and die. Like that's what really sticks in his craw, you know. Like that's the thing where he's like, I have a chance to have her again now. I definitely see him as a tragic villain. Is he a bad guy? Yes. I mean, he turns a bunch of people into vampires.
My new point, but okay.
Yeah, you know, but there's something to be said about that too, you know, where it's like, listen, you took what I had from me. I'm going to make sure that by any means necessary, I have what I have the right to have. By any means, you know, and if that means I have to make an army of vampires to ensure it, then so be it. But there's something to him. There's a nuance to his performance. You know, that back and forth that he has with Dr. Thomas. I don't think that any back and forth between Dracula and Van Helsing. And I have gone on record multiple times on this podcast saying that Peter Cushing is one of my favorite actors of all time. I think that his Van Helsing is the greatest Van Helsing, one of the best performances of all time. And like, throw whoever you want out there. Like, yeah, The Godfather's great. It's filled with amazing performances. Peter Cushing is just the fucking man. That between him and Mama Walde and Dr. Thomas, fuck. I mean, that's one for the ages. That is a showdown where it's like, man, I want to see that again. And I don't know if they pair up again in Scream, Blacula Scream. Because I've never seen it, and in fact I've never even looked into it. Let me see what's going on here. No, it doesn't look like he's in there.
No.
Arnold Williams is in it though.
Okay.
Pam Grier's in it. Holy fuck.
Yeah. Oh yeah. They made.
Wow. Okay,
they got
so
more
I gotta
money.
watch this too.
Yeah, they got more money, and they made a sequel that is the super schlock version of what this could have been. Hey, Blacula means something, but Scream Blacula. All right, now let's put a bunch of some boobies running around, and let's cut some people's heads off and that kind of stuff. And
so that one really is like the Hammer horror version.
Yeah, it's not right. Yeah. And Richard Lawson is in it. Okay, this is a rabbit hole. Richard Lawson is in Scream Blacula the Scream, who's also the guy who played Ryan in Poltergeist. I think you guys did Poltergeist, right?
Yeah, I don't think we've done Poltergeist.
No, I was thinking that maybe you guys did it before I was on the show.
No, I don't think
No,
so.
I'm thinking of The Exorcist.
I guess I have to come back for that.
There we go.
And
I love me some Poltergeist.
His daughter is Bianca Dawson, who was in Save the Last Dance, and she was in a remake, I feel, of Blacula called Bones, with Snoop Dogg.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, wait a minute. Yeah.
I got you my kung fu.
All right. Well, that takes us to the point in the show where it's time that we rate this thing. And so just to remind everybody, we only rate a movie against itself. So we don't use stars. For every movie, we create a unique rating system. Carl, you listened, but I forgot to tell you, but hopefully you know. And if not, that's okay. We've got some ideas. We always like to throw to the guests first. Do you have what we should rate this out of a possible 5?
Well, we have to have the Strange Dudes. I mean, 1 out of 5 Strange Dudes. I mean, or Holy Tapes, or...
All right, so out of a possible 5 Strange Dudes, Carl, what do you give Blacula?
Well, I got to give it 5. I mean, yes, there is cheese, like we keep saying, the pub cheese. Okay, like the makeup isn't the greatest with everybody, but it's 1972 and they had no idea what HD was going to be.
Right.
And some things don't hold up, but at the end of the day, it actually works as a story, a very good one. Mm-hmm. And you follow the character of Mama Wild through the entire thing. And it's a character study, as well as, I'm not going to say it's scary, but there are some very attempts at scares.
There's some good jump scares, I think. The one in the dark room, that's a great one.
That's a good one. And I was to say the cab driver running down that hallway with her hair all
that one
she
was
goes
dope.
after Elijah Cook Jr. So I would give it a 5, and I definitely recommend it. And people who aren't accustomed to the 70s, just give it a chance. Yes, there are different things in there that you're not going to understand. Look it up. Yes, there's some language and some situations that kind of aren't 2023 PC. Who cares? You're not going to die. Just watch it. This is fun. Okay. And William Marshall is amazing with that voice of his. So if you're going to watch it all the way through. Oh my God, that hurts doing that. But I'm going to be like that in the next movie I do.
Dave?
I'm gonna go the same. I mean, if this isn't 5 out of 5 Strange Dudes, what the fuck is?
Right.
You know? And I can't think of anything that would also be 5 out of 5 Strange Dudes. Like, this is the perfect Strange Dude movie, you know? For everything that we've said, you know, I don't want to keep, waxing poetic about this, but this is a piece of cinema history here that actually lives up to its reputation. And I don't get to feel that often because I have such a weird taste in movies and I love watching older movies. There's very few movies that I haven't experienced this with, and I'm not saying I'm like some sort of guru or stuff, because I watch things and then I never get back to them again and I forget, but this is one where it's like, God damn, like, this was fucking awesome. I was watching this and already thinking, I can't wait to watch this again.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. Look, we're going to go across the board with 5 out of 5 Strange Dudes. For all of the reasons that we talked about, and for another reason that we only kind of talked about a little bit, but the soundtrack on this thing is so good. The band in the club is the Hughes Corporation, who, even if you've never heard of them, they're the ones who sing Rock the Boat. And I know you've heard that song. Yeah. It's a multi-platinum single. their performance was so good.
Both of them, because both songs were fucking killer.
Yes. The theme, like Carl has talked about, I mean, just every element of this is memorable. And the things that are cheesy, they're not laughable. They're just products of budget and the time.
Yes.
And they absolutely made them part of the movie. They leaned into the fact that they had not much of a budget, and they created an excellent movie out of it. So yeah, we're gonna go across the board 5 out of 5 strange dudes, because I loved it. I can't wait to watch this one again.
Has that ever happened? It's like a 15 out of a possible.
Well, actually,
it
there
has.
was it has. Yeah, I believe Alien is Alien was an 18. Actually, that's when we had Lisa on.
18 out of 15.
Oh,
We got 18 out of 15 on Alien. We all gold starred Alien.
Can I give it? What was it? 10 Space Cats. I will give it 10 Space Cats.
All right, so there you have it. Across the board, 5 out of 5 strange dudes. Carl, we know you talked about it a little bit at the beginning. Tell us about Mutilator 2, man. What are we in for when we get a chance to see this movie? What you can tell us without getting yourself in any trouble.
If you watch the trailer, it is made kind of clearish. It is not a direct sequel to the Mutilator. It is a movie of the making of a sequel to the Mutilator. Movie within a movie.
Very New Nightmare.
You know what I was going to say? That kind of meta, like the New Nightmare, like Ruth Martinez is in it, and so is Bill Hitchcock from the original. So those two are playing themselves in the movie. And what I can say is that a murder takes place, and it's a murder mystery.
Okay.
And
I'd like to hear it.
All the characters in the movie have something to do with the plot of what the end game of the Mutilator 2 is. And I am throughout the film. I can't tell you what I am, but I am a suspect, like about 100 other characters are. And when I was talking about Joe Castro before, but he has made some very cool kills there. Okay, here's a spoiler alert: people die in the movie because it's a horror movie.
What?
Don't tell nobody.
Never mind.
Right.
Never mind.
But the kills, when I read it in the script of what was to happen, the action in it, I was like, oh, I cannot wait to see this on film. Even if I wasn't in it, I want to see how they put this on film. This is going to be cool. Like one of the best kills in, even though I wasn't a fan, and I know you guys were a fan of the recent reboot of Texas Chainsaw. Not a fan, but the kills in that movie were amazing. Like, I mean, they're just incredibly inventive kind of things you could do with like latex and blood. Same thing with this. Yeah. So everything is
practical. Well, it is what Mutilator is known for, you know. Yeah. Mutilator is known for its story or its acting, or it's those kill effects, man.
Yeah, and they hold up even today.
Yeah,
you know, I mean, those effects are just amazing in the first one, and it was great to actually be directed by Buddy Cooper, who directed the first movie, and to have Ruth and Bill kind of also played like a backstage type of thing with props and everything, so they were kind of helping us all during the shoot. And at one point I had, Buddy Cooper right here, and I had Bill and Ruth kind of doing last looks on me, and I'm like, this is surreal. I got the 2 stars in the last movie and the director right here making sure that I'm okay for this next scene that they were about to shoot. So I had a blast doing it, and majority of the cast and crew kind of keeps in communication with each other. And that's rare, because normally on a film shoot, you're like, yeah, bye. Okay, don't talk to me. Bye. Bye. Yeah. But I hope it comes out this summer. I'm sure if you go to the IMDb page, there are updates. We just, as far as I know, the director, Mr. Buddy Cooper, wants to put it in to theaters. So, like what happened with Terrifier 2, I would love to see it happen with the Mutilator 2. And
that's awesome,
word of mouth spreads around. So please, when it comes out, just go out and purchase a ticket, because you will love it on the big screen.
Yeah, I mean, and that's always something we're saying. Like, get out there and support these ones that are only getting 1 or 2 showings a day. Prove to these film companies that these movies will put butts in seats.
No, absolutely. And I'm, like I said before, I'm a huge fan of movies in general, but like the slasher movies from the 70s and the 80s. if I don't want to watch the next episode of Yellowstone, let me put the Mutilator on, or let me put Slumber Party Massacre on, or something. Or the House of Sorority Ho.
Slumber Party Massacre is truly like the unicorn of this podcast. Like, we know we're eventually gonna do it, but it's like it's a weird one to be like, I guess it's finally the week to do Slumber Party Massacre, but it's gonna happen.
Or the House of Sorority Row, for that matter. I mean, that's one that it's right for this show.
You're right. It is. Yeah. Well, Carl, thank you so much, man. You were awesome. We appreciate the insight into Mutilator 2. We appreciate all your support. Where can people find you online? Keep up with you? Any social deets you need to drop?
Just always on Instagram at Carl J Grasso, and Facebook, I believe, at Facebook Carl J Grasso, or Mutilator 2 IMDb. That will give you all the updates, because there's an Instagram of Mutilator 2 and a Facebook as well as Mutilator 2. Hashtag, I think it's not the Mutilator 2, it's hashtag Mutilator 2.
Right. All right. Well, there we go. Well, get out there, support Carl, support this movie. And if you haven't seen Blacula, go out and watch it. We are going to, because of my sickness, this is going to extend. We'll be done on March 1st. We are going to keep up with we're going to be doing our month of Black History, and we'll be back next month with the 90s classic. Might be a strong word, but I'm excited to do it on the show. We're going to be doing Tales from the Hood next week.
I'll call it a classic.
So from the absolute apex, and the beginnings of this to something completely and totally different with Tales from the Hood next week. So make sure you follow us at ShiverPod on everything. We're Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at ShiverPod. You can find us all of those places on there. Make sure you keep an eye out for announcements about what's coming up, and hopefully a merch drop soon.
Absolutely. So on behalf of all of us here at Shiver, fight you very much.